Hi, friends. It's Brian from the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast. Before this episode gets started, I want to let you guys know that this episode was recorded Sunday, June 29th. Due to plenty of issues with our hosting platform, I've not been able to upload it till July 1st. So some of the stuff you're going to hear in this podcast will seem weird based on timing because a lot of it has to do with not wanting to speculate on free agency. Since I recorded this Sunday, Monday had plenty of signings and trades for us that will be addressed on this Sunday's show, but it's all stuff that I did not know at the time of recording this yet, so it may sound outdated. I will also take this opportunity to say that during the show I mentioned that Emil Heineman is a defenseman. That is not true. I completely fucked it up. I don't know what player I thought I was thinking of, but yeah, I'm going to sound like a real idiot when I talk about the trade that sent Noah Dobson to the Montreal Canadiens and Emil Heineman to the Islanders. I also want to take this opportunity to credit the Islanders on having a great draft. I did not do that when I recorded the show, and I feel that it's necessary to do. They had a fantastic draft. They got a lot of good players, and even though they lose Noah Dobson, they are really building something great over there, and I really didn't drive that point home enough, and instead I just made myself sound like an ass talking about that Emil Heineman is a defenseman when he's not. So, with that being said, I hope you guys all enjoy the episode, and again, look for our free agent episode this coming Sunday when I talk about the Marner contract and the Bouchard deal and all the trades and Pietrangelo and so on. That'll all be in the next episode. Until then, you guys take care and enjoy the free agent frenzy.
You're tuned into the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, brought to you by Zeno Pucks. Here are your hosts, Andy and Brian Matusi.
Welcome back to the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast, presented as always by Xenopucks. It's just Brian today. Andrew is off on vacation in Europe, living life to the fullest. So we got a lot to talk about, but it'll be just me riding for the podcast today. So let's jump right into it. There's a ton of stuff that has happened in the last week. And there's a lot of things I'm still going to miss even by doing this one. But I made what I think is a pretty good list of all the most important things that we've seen happen around the league the last several days. So let's start. First, the big one is the new CBA is finally signed, approved. It'll kick in at the start of the 2026-27 season. Obviously, some of the key outlines of this thing are that we're going to be adding 2 games to the NHL's regular season at the cost of 2 preseason games, which I know a lot of people, it's drawn a little bit of ire with adding more regular season games, but getting rid of preseason games is fine by me. If they're playing the same amount of games already, making 2 more of them count doesn't hurt, especially when you look at the fact that this schedule will allow for every team to play all the teams that are in their division 4 times, and that's the way it should be. So you'll play everyone in your division 4 times, the other teams in your conference 3 times, and then cross conference you'll go 2 times. So it's a perfect way to kind of lay the schedule out. Obviously, if there's expansion, which it seems like there will be in the coming years, this will go away, but ultimately, for now, it'll work. And again, yes, there's more regular season games, but the total amount of games, including preseason, stays the same, and we don't have to watch 2 more boring ass preseason games. So I'm all for it. It seems like the players are too. A couple other things from the CBA, shorter max term contracts. So what this means now is teams that are players that are on expiring deals can re-sign up to 7 years with their current team, or 6 years if they hit the open market, where that was currently 8 years for your current team and 7 years for a new team. So a little bit of a change there. Teams are no longer going to be allowed to have a deferred salary, which had kind of been a talking point over the last couple of years. That's not going to be allowed anymore. Signing bonuses are going to be capped. The big one, obviously, is the playoff salary cap. That's obviously been a huge point of contention over the last several years, probably even more so than the no state tax thing. So this obviously will address the issues where players and teams have had guys go on LTIR, and then they bring in a big contract to bolster their roster for the postseason, and then come playoff times, everybody's healthy. I think this discussion's been beaten like a dead horse. So this will be very much mitigated by the new CBA. And then there's other things in here. League minimum salary will increase over to up to $1 million over the next few seasons, stuff like that. Mandatory player neck protection too, which is a huge one. Obviously, the last several years, this has been a hot button topic with the Adam Johnson tragedy over in Europe. So this is one of the AHL mandated this, I believe, either last year or the year before. And now it'll be mandated for NHL players starting in 2026, 2027. If I understand this correctly, it'll be kind of like the visor thing where players who are already in the league are grandfathered into this, where they don't have to wear them, but anybody who chooses to wear them obviously can. And then all players joining the league from this point forward, or from 2026, 27 onwards, will be required to wear them. So this would be a good thing for safety. Anything, I'm all about making the game safer, just as far as avoiding freak accidents and stuff like this. So all for it. There's the no dress codes as well, which I've never really made a big deal about. I think most people, other than Don Cherry, really don't care about this. But it is what it is. So it's just something on there. And then there's a note on here as well about the league participating in the 2030 Olympics. So we've already got that guaranteed. Obviously, Gary has talked about wanting to do like a World Cup style event over the next several years too. So, I mean, there's going to be international play, which is good. And our players in the NHL are going to be in it. So I think that's huge for the league, huge for the players. But most importantly, all of these provisions of this CBA aside, the fact that it's going to be signed and approved and good to go, it's great for hockey fans. It's obviously over the last several decades under Gary Bettman's watchful eye, this league has had 3 different lockouts. So it's good that this is done, and it's not going to be a conversation piece moving forward. It's just something that, we won't have to even think about for, the next 5-6 years, whatever it's going to be. So it's exciting for the fans. I think everybody, the most recent lockout is the one that hurts, the 2012-13. And obviously 04-05 missing a whole season. That one, not great either. Not getting it to award a Stanley Cup champion is pretty lame. But we don't have to worry about that now. It's signed. They made it a talking point over the last several years, or especially over the last year and a half, that, hey, this is something we're looking to get done so we can avoid any potential hassle. The current CBA doesn't expire until the end of next season. So the fact that they got it done essentially before July 1st is great. So that's good for the game, good for the players, good for the fans. So let's move on now. We got a new Hall of Fame class. 4 players selected: Jumbo Joe Thornton, Zdeno Chara, Duncan Keith, all selected to the Hall of Fame, as well as Alexander Mogilny, who, and I mentioned it last year when they announced the Hall of Fame class, this has been one of the biggest crimes against the sport forever, that Alexander Mogilny has been retired for, I think, 19 years now, and is just now being elected into the Hall of Fame. He was the first Russian player to defect from Russia to come over and play in the NHL. He is part of the Triple Gold Club. He's a Stanley Cup champion, scored 1,000 points in the league, played 990 games. Like, this is a guy who, in a vacuum, would be a Hall of Fame player just based off his stats and accolades alone. But combine that with the fact that he was the first player to defect from Russia and come over here is nuts. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that this guy wasn't already in the Hall of Fame. He played, let's see, it looks like he played 16 seasons in the NHL. And yeah, and again, over 1,000 points, Triple Gold Club, Stanley Cup champion. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what else you could want from a guy's career to be a Hall of Famer. This guy should have probably been a first ballot Hall of Famer, being part of Triple Gold and having 1,000 points. To me, that's the first ballot Hall of Fame qualifier right there. But regardless, he's in now. This has been a long time coming. It's been long overdue, but at last, Alex Mogilny's made the Hall of Fame. And this is not to take away from the other 3 guys that made it. I mean, Jumbo Joe, again, Olympic gold medalist, obviously didn't win a Stanley Cup, but an outstanding player, one of the best players of the previous generation. Zdeno Chara and Duncan Keith were 2 of the best defensemen in the league for a span of at least 10 to 15 years. So, all guys very deserving, but with Mogilny, it just feels extra special because it's been so long overdue. So congrats to all 4 of those guys, not only on great careers, but now finally rightfully being inducted into the Hall of Fame. All right, moving on. Just a quick side note actually on this one, because we don't really cover the AHL that much, but congratulations to Abbotsford Canucks on winning the Calder Cup. Their 4th year as a franchise, and they are bringing home some hardware. So good hard-fought series victory over the Charlotte Checkers. And I didn't get to really watch any of the games, but I watched the expanded highlights from each game, and It's pretty intense. I thought I thought both buildings were very loud, very into the games. And congrats to Artur Shilovs for really not, I don't want to say carrying that team to the Calder Cup, but man, did he have a great run. And now it's looking like he might be primed to take over the Canucks net. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the Canucks have to figure out their situation with Demko, and it's not super cut and dry. But between Demko and Lankinen's contracts, and the fact that Shilovs is ready for the NHL, it seems like somebody's got to go. And it's easier to offload Demko given how good he is. So we'll see what happens from there. But again, for the Abbotsford Canucks, congratulations again, winning a Calder Cup championship. All right. So now we got to start getting into some numbers, ton of contracts, ton of trades, and I'm going to try and get through these as quickly but as efficiently as I can. We're going to start with one of the big ones, probably the biggest one right now. Sam Bennett, 8 years, $8 million per year with the Panthers. So we talked on last week's show, Andrew and I did, about Bennett probably being a foregone conclusion to stay there. If you had to pick any of those three guys of their big free agents, Bennett's probably the guy you need the most. You could argue him or Ekblad. But we were talking, this is going to be a $10 million deal. It'd be perfect for him. Instead, he takes an even team-friendlier $8 million deal. Obviously, they don't have to worry about the state tax, so that does help with this number. But again, probably a deal he's still taking, even if there is tax there, because this team just keeps freaking winning. And I think any player with an iota not an iota, but any player with any level of interest in winning championships is going to take the team-friendly deal after you've just won back-to-back cups. So Bennett signs 8x8, so a super team-friendly deal that should actually give Florida the room they need to get Ekblad locked up if they want to go that route. And depending on the deal Ekblad signs, if they can get him signed, maybe bring back Marchand too. And if Ekblad walks, then you really got the money to bring back Marchand, and you can go out into the market and explore for defensemen. They could go after a Rasmus Anderson or something like that. The Panthers are going to have options here, though. Bennett taking $8 million is huge for the team. They just brought in a goalie as well, the backup Bobrovsky, and it's in my notes here. It's so buried. I may have to dig to find it, but nonetheless, the Panthers strike gold here with this contract for Bennett, and Bennett again gets himself, a guaranteed $64 million. So good for him and good for the Panthers. And we'll see what happens over the next couple of days as we get ready to head towards free agency, kind of where they go with Ekblad and where they go with Marchand. So we'll see what happens. And by next show, we'll know. So let's move on here. JJ Peterka goes to the Utah Mammoth and signs an extension with them, 5 years, $7.7 million per year. The return for Buffalo is Kesselring and Doan. Buffalo also, it was, I don't know if it was Frege or if it was Drager. Somebody put out a note that Buffalo rejected a trade package from the Wild that included, I believe, Marco Rossi and a prospect. So that was interesting. That was one that was talked about for a little bit. Buffalo, the Wild being really interested in Peterka, and obviously with them trying to figure something out with Marco Rossi, that seemed like a kind of a perfect match, but not a package that Buffalo was interested in. Instead, they go out and get Kesselring, who I think should help their team overall. Obviously, I'm not saying Michael Kesselring is the best defenseman on earth or anything like that, but I thought pretty good, pretty effective player in Utah. And again, Buffalo needs some help behind Owen Power. You get a right shot D out of this. So, he's a big body too, 6'4", so he's a big kid. And they get some help on the back end. Obviously, losing Peterka is a nightmare for them, but with any luck, Josh Doan will develop into a good scorer for them. And there's a lot of work to be done in Buffalo, and Kevin Adams just keeps kicking this fan base in the balls, and it's too bad. But even though I feel like they kind of got finessed on this trade, they still got some good players back. Like losing Peterka sucks for them, but I don't believe that they are completely left in the dust with this one. Like at least they got good return back. They got two quality NHL players back for this, and Michael Kesselring. And now Josh Doan still has a lot to prove. I know I think he spent like half of last season in the minors, but with Buffalo, he's going to get an elevated role. He's going to get a chance to kind of prove himself as an NHLer, and I think he'll fare very well with that. But for Buffalo, it just doesn't ever seem like it's enough. So at least in this case, even though they lose a great player, they get back a couple of pretty good players. So, all right, another big move that happened. Noah Dobson goes from the Island to Montreal. He extends there at 8 years, $9.5 million per year. Dobson, it was kind of rumored that he wanted to go to Montreal anyways if he was moving out of the Island. So he goes there, and clearly he wanted to be there because he couldn't have signed that extension fast enough with the Habs. So the Habs get a great defenseman, one of the best young defenders in the league. This comes at the cost of 2 first-round draft picks from them and Emil Heineman, which I liked Heineman in Montreal, but again, as good as he probably will be when he reaches his peak, Noah Dobson has already proven himself as one of the best young defenders in the league. And now he's going to get a chance to play top pairing minutes with Lane Hudson, who obviously we know is, again, one of the best young defenders in the league. He wheels like very few other guys. He moves the puck well. So I think Montreal is putting themselves in a very good spot to continue to grow and get much better. I still think there's a long way to go there. I think Habs fans are, just when I see it on comments on social media, it just seems like there's a little too much confidence there for what they have, but I can appreciate the fact that they're excited. And again, they do have a great young talent pool. So, I mean, anything can happen. I mean, a lot of these guys could break out even more, have even bigger seasons. You could look for, again, career years from guys like Suzuki and Caulfield, who are already good players. We don't know what we're going to see in a full season from Ivan Demidov. So there's really good, there's really good potential here in Montreal, but I think some of the fans might be getting a little carried away. I'm already seeing, I wouldn't be surprised if we win the Cup or go to the final or win the East or whatever. I think those are all a little premature, but again, I can appreciate the excitement of having a great young talent pool like this. So for the Islander side of this, Matthew Darche, I feel like, given what he's walked into, is kind of making the best of I don't want to say a bad situation, but it's not great there. But again, you get a great young defender, and I didn't see who they drafted with their 2 picks they got from Montreal, but obviously the Islanders, their young talent is going to have to, their next generation of players, if you will, is going to have to be it's going to have to be their driving force, because the old guard is pretty much gone. I mean, Anders Lee's still there, but Matt Martin retired. I think Cal Clutterbuck officially retired. Like, I think the only guy left there from that gritty line is Cizikas, and none of the big names that you remember from, the previous generation of Islanders are there. Obviously, Tavares is gone. Brock Nelson's gone. Franz Nielsen left years ago. So kind of that old guard of the Islanders is gone, and it feels like Darche really wants a quick turnaround. Not a quick turnaround, but he wants to accelerate how they bring in this next wave of players. So again, you get a great young defender who you can slot right into your roster, and you can have good quality minutes on the back end of the NHL. I think that's huge for them. And again, what do they have, 3 first-round picks after this trade? I mean, just an unbelievable move for them. So there's still a tough road ahead here. Obviously, I think the fans and the organization hope that Ilya Sorokin recovers next season and has a much better year than he had this year, and really goes back to being that top 3 goalie in the league that he can be. Not that he was horrible this year, but I mean, this guy is capable of being one of the best goalies in the world when he's on his game. So you combine that with bringing in the young blood, and there may be something there in the Island. We just don't know yet until it hits the ice. So we'll see what happens, but it's pretty cool. They bring in, obviously they draft Schaefer first overall too. And again, another guy who can really move the puck. And I think that'll really bolster the roster too. And obviously I think if you ask them, they would like to have Dobson and Schaefer, and in a perfect world you can, but it's not a perfect world. So they do what they can. And again, the Schaefer seems like a slam dunk. He seems like a great kid. So I don't think they're going to be hurting at all. But we'll see what happens. There's still a long way to go on the Island to get this team back to being where it needs to be as far as being competitive. All right, let's see who's next on my wonderful list here. Vander Kane going to the Vancouver Canucks. So, I dogged on the Oilers last week because I was looking at their cap situation. I'm like, this looks like a nightmare. It just looks terrible. And it's not perfect yet, but they're making some headway, although I feel like they hit a roadblock, and I'll get to that in a second. But obviously they're still trying to deal Arvidsson, but they clear out Kane's huge cap hit. Kane gets to go home and play for his hometown team. I think the return for the Oilers was like a 4th round pick. I didn't even write down what the return was, but it was something like that. But the Oilers, the most important thing they get out of this trade is they get cap space. And I mentioned it last episode, like they are hurting for cap space, and they still are. I mean, Kane is gone now, but they officially signed that Trent Frederick deal where he's getting almost $4 million for the next 8 years, which just does not make sense given their situation. But again, if they can move the Arvidsson deal, that'll give them $4 million more of cap space. But right now, Bouchard still is not signed, and they only have $12 million of cap space. I would imagine Bouchard gets probably right around $10 million, and that's going to suck up a lot of cap, and they still have to ice an NHL quality roster. You got to replace Kane in the lineup. Like, this isn't, and they still have to sign Perry and decide, are they going to, it sounds like Kapanen wants to stay there, but they got to make room. So right now, Arvidsson's holding them up, and it sounds like they want to move on from Skinner, but they won't unless they can find the right deal for him. And, the guy people kept saying they needed to go after was John Gibson. And, well, yeah, it's a little late for that, and we'll get to John Gibson's trade in a little bit, but now they really have to make a decision here again. You still have to sign Bouchard. You still have to sign, if he wants to stay, you have to sign Perry, and it sounds like he's seeking a 2-year deal, which at 40 is nuts. But it sounds like there's mutual interest with Kapanen, and like there's all these moves they want to do, but they don't have any fucking money to do it. I mean, once Bouchard gets this contract, let's assume it's $10 million. That leaves him with just under $2.5 million in cap space. Well, you're not signing Kapanen and Perry and another free agent to bolster your depth. You're not doing that on $2 million. So this Arvidsson deal's got to go. And if they want to upgrade in goal, they just have to accept the fact that they're not going to be able to keep one of Perry or Kapanen or even Connor Brown if he wants to stay, which I don't believe he does. But any moves they want to make, they're up against it. And unless there's some Hail Mary Darnell Nurse trade in their back pocket that he would somehow accept with his no move clause, I just don't see it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, time will tell, but I don't think there's a ton of interest out there in Matthias Ekholm at $6 million if they wanted to try and trade him. Not that he's a bad defender, but and I know he was injured, but he had a pretty rough look towards the end of the playoffs too. Once he got back in the lineup, it kind of seemed like he was going to come in and be the saving grace. And in the finals, he had a couple of really bad games. So again, I know probably not fully healthy, but still. So we'll see. The Oilers did make a good move. They offload that Kane deal, which was kind of a burden on their salary cap. But there's still a long way to go. They have to get Bouchard signed if there's any hope there. They just have to. I mean, if somebody offers sheets him and they don't match it, I think they're cooked. But for the Canucks, they get Kane, which after all the locker room drama they had last year, I can't believe they're bringing a guy like Kane in. But if his attitude's in check and he's fully healthy and at his best, he's a player that'll piss off a lot of guys on the other team. So I think that even though this is not nearly a match made in heaven, it helps the Oilers out and still has potential upside for the Canucks, who are looking to do anything to avoid another disaster like last season. So we'll see how it goes, but both teams still have a lot of work to do on both ends of on both sides of this trade. The Canucks and the Oilers still have a lot to do. All right, John Gibson goes to Detroit. So I just mentioned that he was one where the Oilers, it sounded like there was some kind of interest in getting him there. That doesn't end up happening. John Gibson goes to Detroit in exchange for Peter Mrazek and 2 draft picks. I didn't know what the draft picks were, but Detroit gets a goalie. I know they've had Kosa kind of coming through the minors, and and they want to get him into the show, but the Detroit simply cannot miss the playoffs next year. It cannot happen for them. There's obviously the Red Wings. There's still room, or there's still work to be done, but they need to have effective, competent goaltending, and they just really haven't been getting that the last several years. And so now, I mean, Cam Talbot's there, but he's 1,000 years old. Do you try and bury him to bring up Kosa to get him NHL minutes, or do you run him one more season in the NHL because Cam Talbot's deal's up at the end of next year? I don't know. But John Gibson is making just under 6.5. He's at 6.4. He's 31 years old. So still plenty of good years left in the tank. The Red Wings have a lot of work to do. The good thing right now is they have $18 million in salary cap space, but they still need a new deal for Patrick Kane. They have to decide, is Craig Smith going to play another season? What's going on with him? Tyler Mott's a free agent there. I don't imagine he stays. I imagine he'll sign somewhere else.
Jeff Petrie is 1,000 years old. I haven't seen an official retirement announcement from him, but I don't know how much interest there is in signing a guy who's going to be 38 next season. So there's some decisions to be made for the Wings, and they're probably going to have to do some hunting in the free agent market and or bring up guys from their minors to give them a chance in the NHL. Obviously, still some good players there, but really you look at their back end and everybody's old, other than Edvinsson, who is, I would say, far from a top pairing defenseman. He's serviceable, but he's not an all-star. I mean, Moritz Seider is obviously a slam dunk, one of the best defenders in the league. But other than him, it's him and a bunch of old guys. And that is cause for some concern for me with the Red Wings. And I know John Gibson's a good goalie, but he just spent the last several years in Anaheim with not having good defensemen, and he was getting lit up. So I think Steve Yzerman's going to have to do some work this offseason into bringing in competent defenders. And I know there's mutual interest there with Patrick Kane and him staying there, and he's been a good fit there. But you don't know how many more good years he has in the tank, and is good and as much of a vibe as Patrick Kane is it worth tossing him a couple $1 million when you could so much better spend that money on a good quality defenseman? So I don't know. Steve Yzerman's got a lot on his plate. He's got a roster that is a very flawed roster, but still has a lot of good young players. Larkin, Lucas Raymond, Alex DeBrincat, JT Comfer, I think probably needs to have a better season next year, but he's only 30. Rasmussen, another one where not a superstar player, but a guy that you could count on to not be a total liability every night in your roster. There's a lot of opportunity here for a good team, but Yzerman's got to take this offseason and shake up and kind of toss out the bad parts of his roster. And again, not that Patrick Kane's a bad part of your roster, but is it worth having him, taking up a couple $1 million of your salary cap when you could go out and spend some big money on defenders? I mean, if Aaron Ekblad makes it to free agency, Steve Yzerman better throw every cent he's got at this guy, because you need a quality defender. So we'll see what happens. I would really like to see the Red Wings get back into the postseason mix. I have a couple very close friends that are Red Wings fans, and I know they're itching to see their boys get back in the playoffs. But it's an original six team, and it's like when Montreal made the playoffs this year. They're not even a team I care for, but just to have your original six rosters in the teams in the playoffs, I think it's been far too long. The Wings still haven't played a playoff game in their new building, which isn't even new anymore. It's time for them to get into the playoffs. So Yzerman's going to I would assume, have a really busy offseason, but starting off on the right foot with getting a solid, reliable goalie in there. So we'll see how it goes for the Wings. But yeah, that's a team where the only way that they're going to be making the playoffs next year is if they have a busy summer this year. All right, speaking of goalies, Joel Hofer, real quick, signs 2-year extension in St. Louis, $3.4 million a year. Good team-friendly deal. Obviously, Binnington's still the guy there, but Hofer, again, gets himself, it's about $7 million. And again, he's going to be Binnington's backup, but a chance to prove himself and potentially earn a starting job elsewhere or with the Blues if in a couple of years' time they decide to move on from Binnington. So good team-friendly deal, and again, it gives Hofer some security there, and he doesn't have to pick up his life and move it. All right, let's go over now to Kevin Ball in Calgary. So this one kind of threw me off a little bit at first, just because I'm so used to the stagnant salary cap, and a guy making almost $5.5 million a year just kind of seems like a crime for a guy who's not like a top 4 defender, I would say. But we're getting into this new era where the salary cap's going so high that, $5 million is a good, I would say bottom 4 defenseman. Now, top 4, bottom 4, what's the difference really? I mean, you can be a second pairing defenseman and be bottom 4 or be top 4. I mean, what's the difference? But I don't know, man. I don't know how I feel about this deal. Now, I should say Kevin Ball's not a bad player. I mean, he's not, but it just feels like, I don't know. It just feels like this is a little too much money in term for this guy. And maybe not even the money, but the term. I mean, if this deal doesn't work out, and I know the salary cap is in the middle of exploding, I don't know. I don't know what it is about this deal that I'm just not crazy about. And perhaps perhaps as this Flames build gets further and further along, it'll start to become clearer. But I mean, this guy just had what I believe was a career season, and he only had 20 points. Let me bring up his stats on NHL.com here. Yeah, career season, 20 points in 73 games. His previous season point totals, 2 points in 7 games, 4 points in 17 games, 8 points in 42 games, 11 points in 82 games, and now 20 points in 73 games with Calgary last year. So this was his quote unquote career year. And I mean, he's not, I don't want to say that, he's not a terrible player. I mean, he is more of a defensive defenseman, but his advanced metrics aren't so great where I'm like, let's throw a 6-year contract at this guy. Now, to the Flames' credit, they do still have a shitload of salary cap space. I mean, they still have almost $20 million in cap space. So in the grand scheme of things, this may not be the worst deal ever, but again, with what's going to be available in the free agent market, Aaron Ekblad still hasn't signed in Florida. And so the chance to go out and get a guy of his caliber, I just feel like, man, I just feel like spending any money on defensemen that aren't bona fide number 1 or number 2 guys is silly until you see where he settles. Because if you can bring a guy like that in, you absolutely should. So we'll see. Plus, again, the Flames still got to sign Morgan Frost. I assume we're not too far from that. Connor Zary, another guy, I think we're not too far from that. I think July 1, I think the Flames throw a huge contract extension at Dustin Wolf. And so they're going to be spending money elsewhere anyways. But again, until a guy like Ekblad's off the market, I wouldn't be giving any of these guys shit until I know. Now, granted, Kevin Ball, I believe, was going to be a UFA, he was an RFA until he signed this contract. So I can appreciate wanting to keep a guy like that around. But for God's sake, tender him a qualifying offer and see what happens with Ekblad on July 1st. I mean, I don't know. I'm not a GM, and maybe I'm just completely off base with this, and maybe Flames fans will think I'm a complete idiot, but I just don't see the sample size here between his dummy, anybody can look it up, stats and his advanced metrics that make me think that this is a player that's worth this much money. But again, the cap's exploding, and so I keep trying to convince myself that, this isn't a perfect deal, but it's not going to suck up so much money that if it doesn't work out, it's not going to handicap the team. So we'll see. Maybe I'll ease up on the Flames a little bit. I don't know. I just keep going back to it. Just feels weird seeing this deal. So anywho, let's move on though. We got plenty of other stuff to talk about. And real quick on the Flames, I just want to say, I still think their path they're going down is good. It just, this one contract was weird to me. Once they extend Dustin Wolf, everything will feel right with the world. So, and they plenty of their best players are still locked up. Huberdeau's obviously still on that kind of high-end deal, but Kadri's there for a few more years now. He's 34, but Sharon Govich is locked up. He's only 27. Coronado's locked up. He's only 22. Joel Farabee, who they traded for, is still very young and still has 3 years left. There's good potential here. I don't know. It's just something about Kevin Ball's contract where I'm like, what is this? But that's okay. It probably won't be that bad. It's probably just me overreacting. Jamie Benn, 1 year, $1 million extension with the Stars. The Stars keep their captain locked up. I don't think they should, but that money could be better spent elsewhere. But there's something to be said for your team's captain sticking around and spending his whole career with one team. The deal can be worth up to $3 million with bonuses. So for Jamie Benn, if he can have a good season, he can earn $3 million, and then it'll be beneficial to him and the team. If not, if it's a rough season for him, you know what? He got to spend another year in Dallas as the captain, and the team didn't have to spend a ton of money to do it. So I like it for the Stars. It's just another team where I'm like, there's other things they should be focusing on, like Marner or Ekblad, guys like that. And we'll see. Again, I don't want to speculate too much because free agency literally starts in 2 days, and none of this could matter in 48 hours or 49 hours as it sits right now. Free agency, it's 11 o'clock on Sunday. So yeah, free agency, I think, starts at noon on Tuesday, July 1st. So we're not too far away from free agency. So I don't want to speculate too much because we'll have a lot of the answers we need within the next couple of days. But again, for the Stars, Ben stays there, and good on them. I just hope it doesn't distract from the big picture. Riley Smith, 1 year, $2 million extension in Vegas. One of the original Misfits, obviously spent some time away from the organization after they won the Cup, but obviously very much likes playing in Vegas, living in Vegas, and so he's going to stay there for another season. And he's got to be a guy where I don't know how many more years he's got left in the league, but he's making them all count, and he's playing with an organization that not only loves him, but he loves them. And there's that mutual love they have for each other, being one of the original Misfits, being on the Cup team. So good for him to get a nice little chunk of change again, low risk move for the team. And for him, he gets to play in one of the most wagon organizations in the league. Here's another one. I picked on the Kevin Ball contract. This was one that almost made me fall over. Connor Garland, 6x6 in Vancouver. This is the kind of stuff where it happens where I'm like, I don't know what these guys, what this GM's doing. I think it's Patrick Alvin is the GM there. And I'm going to pull the Canucks up on Puckpedia actually while I do this, so I don't have any misinformation. But Connor Garland, look, the Canucks have $7 million in cap space. There's still no resolution with Demko. Now, granted, Demko, I should say, is under contract still. But again, it sounds like they want to bring up Shelovs, and you don't want to roll with those three guys. They really don't have a ton of cap space. Now, the good thing for the Canucks is they don't have a ton of free agents, because Brock Besser, while he is a free agent, is almost certainly going elsewhere. It sounds like he's all but gone. And then Pius Suter, who had a pretty good year with them too. It sounds like there's some interest there. Obviously, this is a pretty good player. He's a good, middle six forward, but they don't have a ton of cap space, and you can't run it back with this group. I mean, the defensive core there is very good. If everybody can just stay healthy, I think that goes a long way for them. But they need Elias Pettersson, the forward, not the defenseman, because they have two Elias Petterssons. And but they need their forward Elias Pettersson to have a great year. That he has to bounce back. This last season was so bad, it's just not acceptable. So obviously they bring in Kane, they get a little bit of extra grit. I just don't understand this deal with Connor Garland. I don't know if it's official. Puckpedia actually doesn't have this extension posted, but Connor Garland's current deal runs through the end of next season. So it's not like it'll affect their cap even if they announce the extension officially or whatever. But I believe, I swear to God, I thought it was official. But regardless, this team only has $7 million in cap space. And again, they're going to have a pretty sizable hole in their roster with Brock Besser gone. When healthy, he's a great scoring winger and really got a really good shot. So it just depends. This team obviously needs some work to get back into the playoffs. They need to be healthy. They need to be effective. But I don't know. I don't really understand this. And again, the cap's going up too. So it's another situation where I just need to tell myself these contracts seem like albatrosses now, but they're going to be run of the mill normal contracts for player, middle six kind of players over the next several years. So maybe it'll look great on them. But again, extending a guy, because when this extension kicks in, Connor Garland will be 30. So I know with an exploding cap, maybe not a big deal, but man, it just like with the Kevin Ball one, it just seems weird. And again, it's not only that, it seems like one where their focus isn't necessarily on the right thing. Now, for the Canucks, again, not the end of the world because the deal wouldn't kick in until next year anyways, but still, I'm just like, ugh. We'll see what happens. And again, maybe a healthy Filipino helps. Having that defense core being fully healthy will help. Elias Pettersson having a good season goes a long way. So we'll see. Maybe the Canucks will make me look completely stupid, but this is just one where I'm like, it feels like the priorities are all over the place in Vancouver, but none of them are in the right spot. All right. Real quick here, we're going to take just a quick break, and we will come back and we'll talk about what is arguably the worst extension we got. And I mentioned it earlier already, but we'll get into it a little bit. So let's hear from Xenopucks. We'll come right back, and then we'll get through the rest of this show. This is the Fresh Ice Hockey Podcast.
It's hockey season, and you're looking to work on your stick handling or maybe even your shot, but ice time just isn't an option for you right now. Luckily, our buddies over at Xenopucks have got you covered. They've developed an elite off-ice practice puck that, in addition to looking like the real thing, is the same size and weight as a regulation hockey puck to give you that authentic feel on the end of your stick. It works better than other off-ice practice pucks on almost any surface, whether you use it on hardwood, carpet, concrete, or even asphalt. Xenopucks glide like a real puck on ice. So if you're looking to improve your game without setting foot on the ice, head over to www.xenopucks.com and get yourself a puck. Check out their merch selection and be sure to follow them on Instagram at Xenopucks.
All right, and welcome back. So a few more contracts to get into. A couple trades, a couple rebrands, and just a few more notes I have here that we need to get through. So let's go back to Edmonton. Trent Frederick extends their 8 years, $3.85 million per year. Again, with everything we just talked about over there, their situation is so messy. I know they're still married to the Arvidsson deal and they want to get out from under that. Not married to it because he's only got a year left, but they're in a tough spot. And you just really think that almost $4 million a year goes a long way towards signing Evan Bouchard. And still having room to breathe. Trent Frederick, when healthy, is a very good hockey player. He's a great depth forward. He's physical. He's nasty. And again, when he's on his game, he's a tough son of a bitch to play against. I want to take nothing away from the player. He's earned this contract, certainly. If any other team in the league signs this contract, I'm like, you know what? That's a long time, but it's not a lot of money. And that's the one thing I want to make a point of. This isn't a ton of money for a guy that can, when he's on his game, be this effective. But given the situation the Oilers are in with their salary cap, this is not where you go spend $4 million that you really don't have. So we'll see where that ends up. I just don't think this is the right move. Again, if Frederick signs this deal with any other team, I'm kind of wondering about the term, but I'm like, you know what? The guy goes and gets his big payday. He deserves it. He's a tough player. Good on him, and whatever team signs him, I'm like, that's not a big cap hit. The Oilers are just in cap hell until they can get, and again, a little bit less now that they're out from under Kane's contract, but until they can get Bouchard signed and get the hell out from Arvidsson's contract, they should not be spending a dime of this money on anybody else. But it's too late now. I mean, they've signed it, so at least Frederick's a good player, but wow, is this one. If they have issues signing Bouchard, this is one they might look back on and say, what the fuck were we thinking? And again, not because the player's bad, but because it was a dumb decision. So we'll go to the opposite direction. How about a really team-friendly deal? John Tavares, 4 years, $4.38 million per year in Toronto. I don't know why that number specifically was the dollar amount they went with per season, but Tavares, who probably could have got $7 to $8 million in the open market, takes a very team-friendly deal, has made it clear he wants to finish his career as a Maple Leaf, and by his own words, believe has a chance to win a championship. A lot of that roster construction will look very different probably at the start of next season, so we'll see how it all plays out. Obviously, Marner is not staying there. Rumors are he's headed to Vegas, but again, not one I'm going to speculate on with Marner because the free agency starts in a couple days. And we'll almost certainly know his new home by the time I do the next show. So not one I'm going to dwell on too much, but Tavares, again, very team-friendly deal. A guy that just scored 38 goals last season. It sounds like the Leafs want to try and deploy him as a third-line center, but with his production, if it stays how it was last year, that guy's going to be sliding in on line 2 every night. I'm almost certain of it. So we'll see what happens. I mean, again, just a really team-friendly deal. You don't see that too often. I think of Pasternak's first deal he signed with the Bruins after his entry-level contract. That was a pretty team-friendly deal at the time, too. Now he's making a ton of money, but you don't see these hometown discounts super often, not to this extent. So good on Tavares and good on the Leafs for sticking to their guns and not spending money that they didn't need to. So I know it was kind of a tough negotiation, and in fact, there were just recent reports where they're saying, hey, it doesn't seem like they're really close on a deal, blah, blah, blah. But all of a sudden it's like, you know what? The team's like, we need you here. And the player's like, you know what? I want to be here. I don't want to pick up my whole life. This is home. This is my team. Let's do this until they sign the deal. So good on Tavares and good on the Leafs. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to do there as far as getting them constructed to the point where they can play off hockey and make deep runs. Let's move over to Winnipeg. Nikolai Ehlers heads to free agency, tells the team he does not plan to sign there. So there's another guy who's probably going to get, somewhere from, I would think, $7 to $9 million in the open market. Great player, or damn good player, I want to say. Great speed, though. He's one of the faster players in the league, at least by my own observation. And you know what? It sucks it didn't work out in Winnipeg, but it just kind of seemed like, especially this season, it seemed like this is where they were destined to head. It didn't seem like Ehlers was going to stay there long term. So I'm sure he'll land somewhere else. He's going to slide in on the top 6 role with any team he signs with. So we'll see where he ends up. I wouldn't mind him on my own team. That's for sure. I would take a guy with his speed and his skill. So we'll see what happens. Matt Martin officially retires and joins the New York Islanders front office as a special assistant to the general manager. Martin, obviously one of the league's toughest players for essentially his entire career, but with the Islanders, famously that gritty third line that eventually became a fourth line, him, Cizikas, and Clutterbuck. I know a lot of people are happy for him that he's retired, but they're happy they don't have to play against him anymore. So congrats to Matt Martin. Great career. Again, a really tough way to make a good living, but he did it. And the game didn't break him down so much that he couldn't play, and it was just time for him to retire. So congrats to him on a good career. And yeah, all the best. And again, he gets to stay with the Islanders organization still. So even better, he doesn't have to pick up his life. He just keeps doing his thing. So, all right, now this one makes me sad. The San Jose Sharks are buying out the final year of Marc-Edouard Vlasic's contract. Vlasic has been, I would say, loyal to a fault with the Sharks his entire career. Has played, I believe, 18 seasons with the Sharks, if I'm not mistaken. One of the best, I would say, top 4 defenders in the league for a long time. I mean, he was there, and you could argue top pairing defenseman too. I mean, him and Burns were mainstays for the Sharks on the back end forever. Part of all those really good Sharks teams, including the team that went to the final. Just a great player. Again, I think almost loyal to a fault, but you know what? An Olympic gold medalist, still a good player. I would think Vlasic is probably headed to retirement unless he's willing to sign somewhere for almost league minimum. Between health and just lack of production, it looks like this is it for him. And if it is, you know what? Congratulations. This is a guy who, again, didn't win a Stanley Cup, but has an Olympic medal to his name and is certainly going to the Hall of Fame one day. So if this is it for him, congrats. And for the Sharks, I don't know. It just seems like with all the cap space they have, it seems like buying this guy out, unless he wanted to retire, buying him out just seems silly. So we'll see what happens. He may retire and then it'll all make sense. But if he's not retiring, it kind of looks shitty on the Sharks when you have, $40 million in cap space and you buy out the most loyal player your organization's ever had. So I don't know. Not crazy about it, but it's part of sports. Jordan Spence goes from the LA Kings to the Ottawa Senators for 2 draft picks. I did not know which picks those were in my notes here, so I apologize for that. But you know what? For Ottawa, again, look, Ottawa had a really, really good season. And I think probably exceeded the expectations the most. I know the last couple seasons we've had these discussions with the Senators of, one of Buffalo or Ottawa or Detroit's got to get over the hump. Who's it going to be? And it was Ottawa this year. Buffalo fell off a cliff as they frequently do. The Red Wings really it seems like after that Stadium Series game, it just like crashed and burned. Their season just kind of blew up in their face. But the Sens, they weathered the storm. They had to kind of duel with the Canadians and the Blue Jackets towards the end of the year to get into the playoffs. But ultimately, it was a good season, and so you bring in a good young defender like Jordan Spence, who is a right shot D, which is important. He's 24 years old, so he's young, which is important. He's only making it $1.5 million against the cap, and he's got 1 year left, so it's a low risk move for the team. If you don't like the fit, you don't have to be married to the player, and if you like the fit, he'll be an RFA after this season, so they can probably get him on a somewhat cheaper deal because they have his RFA rights. But the Sens, as it sits, have $9 million in cap space, $9.25 million to be exact. They still have to decide what they're doing with Claude Giroux and Nick Cousins. I don't know if Adam Gaudette or Matthew Highmore stay there. Hayden Hodgson is also there as a UFA. I don't know what the word is on him. Travis Hamonic, I assume his time in that organization is done. I didn't even know he was still playing, to be quite frank. But the Sens, again, they kind of solidify that sort of young decor they got with Sanderson and Shabbat. And Shabbat's 28, so he's not a spring chicken, but he's still got plenty of good years left. Artyom Zub still has a couple years left there. Nick Jensen is 34, but again, he's probably a guy now with Spence in your roster. You can slot him down to that third pairing. And again, they're going to be bringing in this Yakimchuk kid as well, Carter Yakimchuk, and we'll see what we'll see what happens. We'll see how he looks out there. Again, another right shot D. How do they deploy all these guys? We'll see what happens. So I like the move for the Sens just because it's so low risk. It's $1.5 million on a player that's somewhat proven. I thought it had a good role in LA, wasn't a liability. Obviously, LA season didn't end the way he would have liked, but he's going to get a chance to shine in Ottawa. And now, again, with Linus Ullmark there and this group having some playoff experience under their belt, and they're going to get a full season with Dylan Cousins on the roster. Like, there's a chance the Sens could really have a great season. I would not at all, as good as Tampa and Florida, and to an extent the Leafs are, I think I wouldn't be surprised if Ottawa's in one of these top 3 Atlantic spots this season. I mean, there's just that much potential there, especially if Ullmark has a good season. Not that Jordan Spence is the glue that holds the team together, or he's not the final piece to the puzzle, but again, a team with over $9 million in cap space can go out and add a big free agent forward. Again, I don't know if you keep Claude Giroux just for the experience and the center depth. I don't even know if he was really playing center. Puck Petey actually shows him listed as a winger. But I don't know if you just keep him for the depth and the experience and the locker room vibes, if you can get him cheap enough. But you got to decide what you're doing with Nick Cousins. And once you make up your mind, if you're not going to keep him, you got to go out and get a big free agent. You think like a Nick Ehlers would be perfect in Ottawa here if he wanted to play in Canada still, just because they can put him in on one of those top 2 lines, and he'll be dynamite there, and his speed will be a huge benefactor, or the team will be a big benefactor of his speed if he were to be a guy that signs here. So we'll see what happens. But the Spence trade, again, Ottawa bolsters their young defensive group, and so I think this deal really only can have an upside for them, because if the player isn't a fit, he's not sucking up a bunch of cap space anyway, so it's almost a non-factor. So good for the Senators. And for LA, look, if long term he's not part of your plan, you get 2 draft picks and the potential to bring in guys who will one day be a big part of your team. So I like this move for both teams. It's low risk on both ends, and I feel like both teams kind of walk away from this better in a sense. LA on paper, maybe not better in a sense, because you're losing, again, a guy who can be an everyday player for you. But again, he's not going to be there long term. This gives you the opportunity once again to bring in guys who can be. So we'll see how it pans out for both teams down the road. But I do like this, especially for the Senators. Trevor Zegras, this is a big trade. This was one I actually thought about opening the show with, and then shit just kept piling up on my list, and it actually just got buried down in the notes. I kept forgetting to move it towards the top. So let's get to this trade. Trevor Zegras goes to the Philadelphia Flyers in exchange for Ryan Poehling, the 45th pick in this draft, and then a 4th-round pick next year. So for the Ducks, look, you get Poehling, who not making a shitload of money, but you get a couple draft picks. Again, Anaheim's still working on building. I thought with Coach Q coming in, they'd give Zegras one more year. But you know what? For Zegras, yeah, he leaves as soon as the Ducks actually get a good coach, but he goes to Philly where, again, Talk has taken over there. He's a great coach, so he'll have a chance to play under one of the best coaches in the league, and he gets to go play with his best friend, Jamie Drysdale. So you're kind of thinking the morale boost that those guys will get from each other will help both of their performances. And so I like this move for both sides. I like the fact that Anaheim is able to not only get a guy who they can drop directly into their lineup, but again, similar to what LA did, they go and get that draft capital that, again, will let them continue to build as good as this team has a chance to be this coming season, especially if Lucas Dostal continues to be just an unreal goalie. It's good, as much as I think there's a chance for them to be a good team this year, they're still building more and more for the future. This is a team that you can kind of see how this blueprint's coming together, where they're starting to build more towards the future and wanting to build a team that can sustain success for 10 to 15 years instead of 4 to 5 years, something like that. So I like the move for both groups. Again, for Philly, it's kind of a chance to revive Trevor Zegras, and he's dealt with some health issues too. It's not just lack of production. It's just he hasn't been fully healthy in a couple seasons. And so this is a guy who's going to get to go play on a team with his best friend under one of the best coaches in the league in a market that loves their hockey and is super passionate. So this has a chance to work out very well for both sides. Not that Ryan Poehling's a superstar player, but again, for the Ducks, as they continue to build and they have all kinds of cap space, you bring in a guy that you can slot into your roster every night as well. So I like this one. Mason Lohrei, real quick too. This was another one that got buried in my notes. I meant to keep it up by all the contracts, but this kind of works hand in hand, and you'll see in a second. Mason Lohrei extends in Boston, 2 years, $3.2 million a year. So the Bruins again lock up a defender. The Bruins got a long way to go to right the ship here. I feel like, unless they have something big in their back pocket. I know, again, we've mentioned it 1,000 times. Obviously, a full season to Jeremy Swayman is going to help with him getting training camp under his belt. No drama from the contract. Charlie McAvoy and Hampus Lindholm being healthy, again, going to be a big help. but there's still a lot of work to be done for the Bruins. But with Lohrei, a guy, an everyday player in your lineup, super team friendly deal, super cheap. So it's not going to suck up your cap if he doesn't perform, to the best of his abilities. But if he does great, then he earns himself a nice chunk of change a little bit further down the road when the cap will have really exploded by then. And not the worst deal. Again, there's a lot of work to be done for the Bruins, and my confidence in Don Sweeney to right the ship here isn't super high, but you got to start somewhere, I suppose. The Bruins also rebranded as well. So they go to a logo that is a combination of the current bee and the old spoked bee. So they take the shaping of the bee that we know recently from the past about 15 to 20 years or so and combine it with the old spoke and coloring scheme of the 70s to 90s look. And so I like the rebrand. It's simple but effective. It got a lot of backlash on social media. The jerseys too, which by the way, the jerseys look outstanding. They look just like the retro ones that you would have seen Bobby Orr and Ray Bourque wearing, and they got dumped on a lot. I was kind of surprised, and there were some people who said they looked the same, which I just don't know if your eyes don't work or what, but they're very clearly different jerseys. So I pick on the Bruins a lot on this show, but man, did they hit this rebrand on the head. Sometimes less is more, and going back to the retro look that people have been begging for pretty much since you got rid of it. I think it's great. I think it looks outstanding. They're nice, clean jerseys, a nice, clean design for the spoked bee. I think they hit it right on the head. I think these jerseys look fantastic. The full uniforms look great. So I can't wait to see them out on the ice this year. But yeah, some people really did not like it. And I really don't know what the disconnect is there. Another team that rebranded, the St. Louis Blues. So again, a rebrand where they go to a more retro look. Obviously, Blues fans will recognize the Blue Note logo as kind of more of the original look, kind of that retro look as well. Their new away jersey very much reflects that of their most recent Winter Classic jersey, just having the Blue Note on it instead of saying St. Louis. And the home jersey is essentially identical to the alternate jersey they've been wearing the last several years. So a couple of good rebrands. I thought, again, less is more when it comes to these. When you have a look that you used to have and it's good and you get rid of it, I don't think there's anything wrong with going back to it, much in the way LA did when they went back to their 90s look. The Ducks rebrand I thought was good too. I wish it would have just been the original Mighty Ducks logo. I know they wanted to go for a more modern and sleek appearance and drown it in the color orange, which I still think it looks good, but again, sometimes less is more. If like for the Ducks, if they would have just gone with their alternate with the orange jersey, the original Mighty Ducks logo, and the black pants and black helmets, that would have been fine. But they were all in on the orange. But nonetheless, that was a good rebrand. The LA one was good, and I thought these two much in the same way, where going back to something old doesn't always have to be a bad thing. It's a nice, clean, simple look. It's not gaudy, and I just think they both did a great job. So, all right. Last one here. This will be a little bit of a Blue Jackets corner, I guess. Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood are coming to town. Gavin Brindley and a couple picks go the other way to Colorado. The reality is this. It's not the best move for the Jackets. Now, Charlie Coyle is a great centerman. I think he does, as it sits and on paper, I definitely think the team did get better as it sits right now. And again, Miles Wood, another depth forward who will be able to play every day. So I don't think this made the team worse in this exact moment, but having a chance to watch Gavin Brindley play in Cleveland and seeing how much better he is than 95% of the players on the ice, I think this has a chance this trade has a chance to age very poorly. And again, depending on what the picks, how the picks that Colorado got go, like with their development, I don't know. This is one that has a chance to age poorly. Again, right now it makes the Jackets better. It absolutely makes the Jackets better. But again, for the Avalanche, they shed a lot of cap space. And they also bring in a young prospect who's got a chance to be a really good player. I think that this Gavin Brindley kid, I'm telling you, Avalanche fans, if you don't know about this guy, if you get a chance to watch him play, whether he's in the minors or with the big club, this kid is good, man. He's going to be a problem for the league, I think, in a couple of years. And like I said, this trade just has a chance to age very poorly. So I hope it doesn't for the Blue Jackets, but As it sits right now, again, they're going to be a better team next year. And if they're able to go out and get Marner, which unfortunately at this point doesn't seem like it'll happen, but again, if they can go out and get any free agent wingers like Besser or Ehlers, the Jackets have a chance to be really good next year. And I think people aren't realizing how much of a chance Jet Greaves is going to give this team a chance to win some hockey games. So Daniil Tarasov goes the other way to Florida to back up Sergei Bobrovsky, which is fine. Two Russian goalies playing together. I think they'll blend well, and I think Tarasov will maybe fit in an environment more where he's got a championship caliber team in front of him. I think that'll better help him develop, and who knows, he may turn into the goalie of the future for the Panthers. You just never know. But for the Jackets, again, it seems like maybe this will be the season where Elvis starts to take a back seat and they really give Jet Greaves that chance he deserves. So it seems like Dean Evason's all in on Jet being the goalie of the future if he's in control of where he is. And again, bringing in Charlie Coyle and Miles Wood is going to help this team with their forward depth. So a team that wasn't very far from the playoffs last year. I mean, it came down to the last game or two. So we'll see. I mean, again, this trade does make the Jackets better in this exact moment. I just worry that Gavin Brindley's going to be a 40-goal scorer and nuke this team every time he comes to town. So we'll see what happens. But that is all I got. I feel like I was pretty efficient in getting through all my notes. I did it all within an hour too. So that was kind of my goal here. I mean, if I had Andrew on, we'd be probably going at this for a couple hours here. It's a lot simpler and a lot more streamlined when you just kind of go at your own pace. But again, you lose that aspect of having somebody to talk about this with, because it kind of just feels like I'm talking to myself almost. So a lot has happened in the last week, and as busy as it's been, I think the next show is going to even be more chaotic. As free agency gets here on Tuesday afternoon, we're going to have plenty of trades, plenty of signings. I'll just say in advance now, I know there are a lot of you that reached out that we don't talk about your team enough, and I'm sorry. It's just with all the news that happens, especially around trade deadline and free agency and stuff, we absolutely have to prioritize getting the most important and the biggest news. And so I will miss a lot of these depth contract signings over the next few days, but because we're going to have what I assume will be a few blockbuster trades and a couple of huge free agent signings, I'm not going to be able to get to it all. So I'll apologize in advance for that. But I'm excited. This free agency is going to be huge. I can't wait for this Mitch Marner drama to be done. It seems like he's going to Vegas, but who knows? I'm excited for the Brad Marchand, Aaron Ekblad drama to be done. I'm excited to see what the Oilers do with their god-awful cap situation. There's a lot that's going to happen over the next couple of days. And so I think it's going to kill me to have to wait till next Sunday to do the show. But at the same time, giving it a couple extra days past July 1st will allow even more news and more signings and more trades to roll in. Because even though free agency starts on the 1st, it's not all going to happen in one day. So it'll give us a few days of a buffer to iron out these contracts and trades and see what our league's going to be looking like in a couple of days. So thank you everybody for tuning in. I know the show is a little bit unusual compared to what we're used to, and the next show is going to kind of follow the same route. But again, let's just all send our best wishes to Andrew while him and his wife are out enjoying the European sea and landscape, and hoping they're having the best trip over there. So again, he'll be back in 2 weeks with me to do our season finale. But I myself will be back again next Sunday to kind of break down the early days of free agency. So in the meantime, you guys all take care. You have a great week. Hope the weather's nice wherever you are, and see you next Sunday or Monday, whenever this gets uploaded.